And we're back on What the Funk. I am so excited about this episode today. Dominique, formerly Ralph, now Ferency. Dom, you are someone that I've wanted to have on this podcast for a long time. I think that I started planting the seed about a year and a half ago. Things had to kind of get settled and stable in your world, and I wanted to make sure the timing was right. But now we got you on, so I'm really excited about this. And I do have a lot of my former like colleagues, like coworkers on this pod, but very rarely is it somebody that I only worked with for like 2 months. But we did work together at Seven Lakes back in 2013, and it was such a sad day when you decided to leave. I remember talking to Simone Ghebreyesus about it, and I was like, man, I am so bummed that Dom left right now. But I really only knew her for a couple months. And I remember Simone being like, that's all it takes with Dom, man. That's all it takes. So really kind of a fun crew. That was a crazy time at Seven Lakes. You were there kind of like from the genesis of that organization, really helping them get off the ground on projects with Lynn and others. And in my mind, were really crucial to establishing a lot of the practices that allowed Seven Lakes to really grow and flourish as a company. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about, what you're doing over at Chevron and the move from California to Houston and all these things. Before we jump into that, I want to know, who are you? Who's Dominique Ferency?
Wow. What a, it could be a heavy question first right out the bat, but at the same time, right. I think I've learned over the years that I am truly multifaceted, right? I am many things to many people, and I really lean into caring, looking out for individuals and all things that I do. I mean, that's truly what brings me a lot of passion. So if I had to say who I am, right, I'm one who loves to learn, pick up new things. I have a creative side to me, and I try to bring that into all that I do. And then I also have a love of technology, of all things tech. And it's been that way for as long as I can remember. In fact, my parents would joke that they knew I was going to be a developer by junior high, right? I was already tinkering and doing those things so early on. And I already knew what my major was going to be before I even got to college. Like I was destined to be in the tech space. Very rare for kids to say, yep, this is what I'm doing. This is my path. My dad talks about it all the time as, a family joke that I had that direction set. But no, I do love to learn, create, both creative and tech side, both.
So, like, I'm coming up on 45 years old and I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up. So I just sort of ended up as like a history and American studies major in college. I think because those were like some of the easier classes that could ensure I actually graduated in 4 years. So I didn't break the bank for myself or my parents. But you knew, like, you had a bit of a plan. Where are you from? Like, where'd you grow up? I know you ended up going to Chico State, and I love referring to you as the smartest person who's ever gone to Chico State. Maybe that's debatable, but like where are you from, and what was your what was it like, growing up wherever you grew up and then heading into college and professional life?
For sure. I mean, I had a really interesting background, right? My family is from the Caribbean. So we have this, kind of movement throughout the family of going from the Caribbean up to Canada, which is where I was born. I was born in Montreal. That's why you see, a lot of Mardi Gras and celebrations up there in Toronto and New York and all those places, right? There was a big migration there back in the 70s and then in the 80s too. And then, I plopped myself straight from out of Montreal, and then family moved to California. So I grew up in the LA area mostly, and knew that I wanted to stay within California as long as I could. So, but at the same time, looking to go as far away as you can, when you're getting out of high school, like how far can I go and still be in California? So that's,
Yeah.
ended up in Chico. But at the same time, right, I grew up with one sister. We're 9 years apart, and she is very much almost like a second, my second mom. She
Yeah.
raised me as much as my mom did, but we're locked in together. She had an entrepreneurial spirit early on and brought that in for me as well, to bring that entrepreneurial spirit in as well. And so we've always been lockstep together. So she's my best friend, my everything. She does, we lock together. Both of my parents and my sister's family are all still in LA. So I do
Mm.
my best to go out and visit as much as I can. But my husband and I are here in Houston. So I do feel that it can be tough sometimes, right? Being apart from each other. But my family that's my immediate family, but my extended family is quite large, right? I've got about 12 aunts and uncles on my mom's side, and I think about 6 aunts on my dad's side. So there's a lot of the family, but we were the only ones to come all the way over here to the West Coast.
Mm.
So we grew up pretty tight knit together, but always like a really strong support system. Always really, striving to say, what do you want, right? What do you want to get out of your life, out of your future? And they always were supportive and backing me up along the way.
I love that. So
Yeah.
you knew you kind of had a passion for tech, and you decided to go to Chico State. Were you like a computer science major? Is that what you did in college?
Yeah. So I did. In fact, I actually started as computer engineering, thinking
Okay.
I might want to have like this hardware component side. And I realized down the road, like, this is not for me. Like I had the breadboard, and I had all my resistors, and I carried it around from class to class. I don't know. It wasn't as exciting to me as the software side. And so I shifted to computer science in my second year to kind of hone in and be as specific as I can. I went down a math emphasis, which is
Okay.
kind of unique for Chico. So normally you'd see for computer science, you might see, maybe some uh, design like subdisciplines, or specific like programming subdisciplines, cyber, things like that. But I chose the math option, the math path, and I ended up getting a minor because of that. But I thought I would get into relational algebra, specifically around uh, database design and
Mm.
how we managed like the query languages and how that ties into math. Now, I was going to go into that as a research, and maybe extend that into my master's, but life took me a different path. And I kind of abandoned that portion of it. But it's always something that had interested me about even the natural query language,
Mm.
how we how we process information and data, how we search for it. Is there more effective ways to do it? And I thought I could go into that research down the road, but life and work decided that was a better path for me at the time.
So I've always thought of you as like a Chevron person, not necessarily a lifer, but you may be at this point. So did you go right to Chevron and like live in Bakersfield after college? Is that what happened?
Yeah, great question. So, when I was going through school, I was one that signed up for everything, right? I wanted to be and lead it all. So I was president of this and president of that. And
Yeah.
I was quite active on campus. Uh, but one of the things that companies do when they come onto campus is they'll work with the student organizations to try to get their voices out there, right? To get the audience. So because I led so much of the computer science department groups, a lot of companies would contact me to say, hey, we want to get as many students in the room as we can.
Yeah.
Chevron was one of them. And at the time, I was a graduating senior. I had multiple internships under my belt with Hilton. It's a part of my life we
Hmm.
don't talk about too much, but every summer since freshman year, I was working with Hilton in PeopleSoft. So
Ah,
I
okay.
had a huge background on finance, HR, supply chain for PeopleSoft. That was before it got picked up by Oracle. We focused on all the different hotel locations. So I was at their Beverly Hills headquarters before they moved to the East Coast. So it was actually a really neat experience, and they were right in the heart of Beverly Hills. And I got to learn a lot from that experience. But it's very rare to find a student that has 4 summers of PeopleSoft background and development. So I think when Chevron saw my resume, they saw I can fit really well into JD Edwards,
Of course.
which they go hand in hand now, right? As I think, I forget who bought who, but something like that, right? The acquisitions along the way. But yeah, they recruited me. So I was not looking for a job. I didn't know what I was going to do. And they said, we'd love to have you. And I said, all right, let's give it a try. They weren't even on my radar, but they were so good about approaching me and showing me what's possible. So yeah, I started in Chevron right out of school, and I started in the Bay Area. So San Ramon was
Ah,
home base. And I moved between there and Concord when they had their Concord location, and really enjoyed it. So I was there for a few years before I moved to Bakersfield. Yeah.
got it. Got it. Interesting. Okay. So you've really spent a lot of time all over California. Had you ever been to Bakersfield before you moved there? Because they're like, hey, we want to put you out in Bakersfield. Let's go.
Yeah, my journey for that was actually two options at the time. And I always reflect back to say, did I make the right choice? What would life have been if I picked, door one versus door two? But
Yeah.
my second position move was you can move to Bakersfield and get experience, right? Being closer to the business and in the field, which I really liked. Or option two, I could move to Canada. So my option was to go over to Calgary and work from there.
Hmm.
And talking with family, they said, oh, it'd be so much better. You could be closer to LA. It's only an hour 15 drive to get home and back. And I thought about, being away from the family for so long, right? I was already 7 years, right? With Chico plus the Bay Area. It's been seven
Yeah.
years from being away from home. And I said, maybe Bakersfield makes more sense, right? For me to stay close. But Canada was on the table. And I still, I always reflect on choices, right? You always say to yourself, oh, it should have, whatever, right? It could have been this, it could have been that. But everything I've done, I feel like there's value. There's value that I got out of it. There's value in the progress and the connections I made. I would not have changed a thing. So Bakersfield was home. And no, it was my first time seeing Bakersfield when I had
Wow.
already made the decision, because at that time I said, let me go where life takes me. I did not feel that I had to hold back. If maybe I didn't like something or I was unclear about it, I'll make it work for me. And I knew I had the support network to make it work.
Interesting. Okay. So you end up in Bakersfield. And was this like, were you working like in a double wide trailer? Because I know that there's like a
Oh,
whole lot of those in the oil field in Bakersfield, or were you in like some sort of corporate office closer to downtown? And what did you do? Like you'd had some experience working with enterprise systems at that point. What did
mm-hmm.
you do at Chevron in the
Yeah.
Bakersfield stint?
Yeah, Bakersfield was truly eye opening. I think when you work in the energy space, you may find yourself working in an office setting, so it feels very much like any kind of large corporation or company. But when you get closer to operations, you really get to see and respect the process, like really
Yeah.
understand what it takes. And Bakersfield was really exciting for me because it made everything real. I got to see it firsthand.
Yeah.
In fact, Bakersfield has all the combinations, both office setting and field location. I got to do both, which I really liked. But yeah, in the field, they have sometimes what we call double wides, which we called, like kind of home bases. And we worked out of trailers, we worked out of different facilities that they had within the field. But what I really love the most is, pulling up, you're pulling up right next to the well, you're
Yeah.
parking right across from it. There's thousands, as far as the eye can see, of, different production facilities. And you know that when you make a change in the application or the software or the program, it is making a difference in the field. I really truly connected to the change. We make a change, the
Yeah.
engineers see that firsthand the next day. So the value story that you're bringing, the all the details behind contributing to the end goal, you feel a part of it when you're there. So I always actually encourage early career energy employees to spend time out in facilities if you can, because you really do have an appreciation for what it takes to make the whole value chain happen.
Yeah, it makes it real, and it's also just cool. Like for me, I'm here in Colorado, and the wells that are being drilled here and that have been drilled over the past 15 years are these like massive IP wells, right? You're talking about fracking and going down a mile and then horizontally a couple of miles, and massive well pads, and rigs moving all over the place, and then
Mhm.
even driving past some of these to the airport from my house and then going up somewhere like Bakersfield, I was like, oh my God, these donkey heads are almost like hitting each other as they're going up and down in the field. There's so many wells. I like to refer to it as it's like a graveyard. You know what I mean? Because you
Sure.
just go out there and you see like right next to each other, there's all these different wells and tanks and trucks. And
Yeah.
Bakersfield is really foggy, right? So I'll never
Yeah.
forget one of
Yeah.
my first times driving out to a double wide. First of all, there was no address. It was just like geographic like pin
Turn
somebody
right
sent
here,
us.
do this.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like, so you go down like the third dirt road, right? There's three of them close to each other. Find the third one as you're getting closer to Taft. Go right, go a little less than a mile. And I'm like, there's no service on my phone right here. This is going to be hard. And you drive out and you go and you park and you're like, oh my God, if I backed up like 3 more feet, I would have hit a well,
Mhm.
So like
Mhm.
that compared to here and, other places, West Texas, for example, where the spacing's so much different, was like started to make it real for me. Like, okay, I see why these wells produce 10 barrels a day forever versus some of the wells close to me might start off producing 1,000 and then have steep declines. So I agree. Like my contrast of seeing what was happening here and in West Texas versus seeing what happened in California is like, okay, there's all different types, right? As you're looking
Mhm.
for the commodity in the ground, maybe you don't have to drill as deep, right? Maybe you
Yeah.
don't have to increase the choke. You just sort of keep it running steadily and the decline is flat forever
Mhm.
versus these massive
Mhm.
steep declines. So I feel like when you were in Bakersfield, that's when you met like the Seven Lakes crew, right? So you were working on projects that were creating efficiency both for the field as well as the back office, and putting
Mm-hmm.
technology on the front end. So, did you love that? And then what happened? All of a sudden, a bunch of you guys leave and start Seven Lakes? Like, what was that process like?
Yeah, so I think we recognize that there's a lot of value in what we're doing, but the relationships that I had in Bakersfield were really special and unique. Like so many of those individuals, I still connect with today. So I have a good friend. She was actually our manager at the time over the Data Foundation project. She's already left the company. She actually works over at SAP now,
Okay.
and she's in Ireland. And I had a chance to see her and connect with her recently, and those relationships, right, make a difference in how the project kind of comes together. I know it's
Yeah.
kind of it's very cliche to say, right? You've got to have the right connections, and the people have to really make sense and fit together. But when you're linked, when you really understand each other, and you know how to lean into each other's um, strengths, each other's skills, and recognize when, hey, this is a gap for me. Let me bring this person in who can close that gap. All those
Yeah.
pieces come together to make magic happen. But no, at the time, the project was kind of through a stabilization, right?
Yeah.
We had done a lot of work. Um, we had found a scenario that the teams were able to kind of keep everything going. And I think people were kind of just moving on career wise, right,
Yeah.
over the time. But yeah, I think a few individuals recognize, hey, we can create this same scenario outside of Chevron and do something unique. Now, I did not leave with that initial team.
Yeah.
I actually had a lot of other projects, both family projects and other things going on that I saw and recognized as an opportunity. And I was right there at the 5 year mark in my career, which tends to be that time in everybody's journey in their life when they're starting to pivot. They're starting to see what else is out there,
Yeah.
right? I have only known Chevron from graduating from Chico State. And I think I was saying to myself, what else might be out there that I could try, that I could
Hmm.
experience, right? Beyond the walls that I've only seen and created around me. So I think I took a chance, right? Not only trying out that new opportunity with Seven Lakes, but also trying some family projects
Hmm.
on the side too. Like this was my time to really partner with my sister and try some new things out, as well as finding my own path in my own career. And again, this was another decision, almost like the Canada versus Bakersfield, right? This was another, do I stay or do I go? Do I take the chance or do I kind of stay the course? And again, I wouldn't change a thing, right? I knew the people that I would work with, that we would get it, that we would lock in
Yeah.
and lean into each other's strengths and make something magical happen. So I took the chance, and I love every moment of it.
That's great. Yeah, and you said a few things there that I want to latch onto, and I think one of them is like the chemistry, right? And that was actually really obvious to me in the like, and part of why I went to Seven Lakes because I've always felt, and this has been reinforced over the years, that like, first of all, people do business and buy from people that they like and that they trust, but I also think that there's an element of people do business where they see chemistry amongst the team that they would do business with. Like that's
Uh-huh.
important. If you're in a meeting and you see these people don't even really like each other, right? Like what's the
You
future
can
for this
feel that.
company? You can feel it
Exactly.
when you're working for especially a smaller company. It's really important to put that united front forward, and you just can't fake it. It's not a fake it till you make it situation. Every hire is so crucial. Relationships mean a lot, and it comes through when you are in the room talking about doing business. And in a lot of cases, some fairly impactful, substantial business. If you're talking about data warehousing and analytics and reports that then get spread to hundreds of people throughout an organization, like you probably feel more comfort working for a bigger company. So if you're going to work with a smaller company and doing that, like you really need to see like, A, they have all the skills, and then B, like,
Yeah.
do these guys even like each other enough to be around? Or is this person going to start my project and then leave in 2 months? And then I'm like, what the hell's going on? Why did I make this decision? And I think Seven Lakes had a lot of those things out of the gate, which is part of why I joined the company. In addition to like the experience in the space, and then just like the general like high level of intelligence within that company. So at the point that I started working there, you were a few years in, and
Yeah, I
you
think
you were like
so.
truly the jack of all trades. It was like, hey, there's something wrong with my computer. You're like, let's get on a GoTo meeting, right? And show me what's wrong with your computer. Hey, Dom, I'm
Yes.
having an issue logging into this, right? We'd like FaceTime on the phone. And
Mhm.
you're like, yeah, do this and that. And then it's also like, oh, I need a proposal. Can you help write it? Sure. Hey, I'm
Yeah,
onboarding. Like, what are we doing for onboarding? You're like, oh yeah, so the bathroom's over here, and
I've
we're gonna
got
go to
you.
lunch over here. So like, you were like a really valuable resource for a small company, because you, I think, in a lot of ways, were such. You could at least put the generalist hat on. So then you
Mhm.
left, and I was like, that sucks so bad. But I think that you left, and did you go back to Chevron, or did you take some time off working on some of the other family projects? Like that must have been 2013 timeframe.
Yeah, 2013. So I did take some time off. Not too long actually, because this is again the power of networks. That same friend that I was just talking about, who's in Ireland, she heard that I was a free agent again, and said, "Wait a second, if you're not working, for Seven Lakes, we've got to get you back, right? We've
Yeah.
got so much work to do." So came back in to Chevron as a contractor, and I did
Ah.
that for a little bit, and was kind of doing kind of like my family businesses on the side, as well as consulting for Chevron. And it was probably about like 8 or 9 months in. Chevron said, "Okay, let's convert you back to an employee, and have you come back in as an employee." So that really was one I had a chance now to see what the world was like outside
Yeah.
for so many years. And while I did enjoy it, the travel got to me. The on the road style is something you've got to wrap your head around when you're doing consulting work. Like, especially living in Bakersfield, that is the
Oh,
worst commute you could possibly do trying to go to these locations. Because I
yeah.
always was stuck in Houston. Let me tell you, I could never get out of Houston because of some storm or something coming through. I'd have to wait another day before I can get that flight back out to Bakersfield. So
Yep.
that life is a hard life.
It is. And that was a big thing for me too. Like I'd never traveled much in my career. Like for a really important demo or meeting, yeah, you get on a plane, you go, I'm in Denver. So you go to Dallas or you go to Pittsburgh. Or of course, you go to Houston for conferences and for meetings and all that. But it wasn't the like every week type of thing.
Yeah.
So in 2014, 2015, when Seven Lakes was like full blown services and consulting, and I was like the only sales guy, I feel like I traveled almost every week. I mean, I remember looking back and like over a course of 2 years, it was like 90 round trip flights. So like
Yeah.
180 one ways. Yeah, like you get status and you get a whole bunch of points if you're flying the same airline that you can redeem and go on like nice trips with your family. But when you're traveling so much for work, you don't want to go on personal trips. You just want to chill
No,
out and
you
stay at home, you know?
And to be honest, yeah, you're spot on. And I think too, I look back and say to myself, well, that life too also does not bring the balance that
Yeah.
I realized I needed in my life. So I knew that the work I was doing was really helping the company, right? I could see my work, and I could see that there was, it was appreciated. But the problem was too that, hey, it could be Sunday. It
Yeah.
could be a Sunday morning and I get a call and I better get my laptop open because there's a big
Yep.
proposal Monday morning and we forgot like a whole section of the
Yeah.
proposal and we got to work it. Or we've got a big presentation for a VP and I need to get up on Saturday morning and keep knocking that out. And
Yeah.
so I did not have any boundaries at all. I allowed it to 100% take over because I knew the value, but I also wasn't giving myself a chance to make sure I was valuing my time and myself as well. And not only that, I think also my career journey, because you called it right. I was doing a little bit of everything, and I
Yeah.
think I lost myself in what I know and what I do. I lost the tech side because I was doing marketing, I was doing proposals, and all of these things. And I was still doing some software work, right, as an analyst, but it was not the same. And I think I had a chance to reset myself.
Yeah. I mean, you really did do a lot, which is super valuable for a smaller company. But I could also see that being like, all right, what am I doing? When I sit down today, like, what am I doing? It's some HR, maybe it's some payroll, maybe it's marketing, maybe it's sales engineer, maybe it's proposal writing. And you're getting further and further away from the tech, which, like, as you said, is something that you've liked since you were just little, Dominique. So
Exactly.
I could see where honing in on some of that focus is helpful. And I remember you moved to Houston, which sort of felt inevitable. I feel like with you were already traveling there so much, and you don't mind
Mm-hmm.
warm weather. Besides Canada, you've always lived in warm weather places, right? Your family is
Yes.
from the Caribbean, so you end up in Houston. What was that like? Like, when did you go to Houston, and what was the impetus for that? It's like, we want you at corporate headquarters, or why did that happen?
Yeah, when I started doing the consulting work, it needed to be front facing. The role what required me to be on site at a lot of different locations, and the team was 100% based in Houston. So I recognized for myself that Bakersfield wasn't going to get me far. I could
Mm,
not stay in Bakersfield and grow my career and find the things that I want to, do in that particular environment. So I either needed to go back to LA, I needed to go to the Bay Area, or try something out. And I think when I got this opportunity, I said, go for it, right? At the
yeah.
time, I still wasn't married. My husband, boyfriend at the time, he said, let's do it. So we moved together. Thankful he had the flexibility in his role. He worked for FedEx at the time, and FedEx is everywhere. So he
Yeah.
had an opportunity to sure move to Houston, no problem. So we did it, moved out there, and yeah, haven't looked back. So I've been out there now since about 20, so 10 years now.
Wow.
Time is flying by, flying by. I never thought I would have left California, but I did, and it's home. I do love it here. It's hot, yeah, of course it's hot, but
Well, right now.
I love to travel, and so that's a part of our you know married life is we do a lot of traveling and we go out and see places. So I never feel locked in Texas. This is a home base. And then off we
Yeah.
go to the next adventure. So yeah, I kind of look at it that way.
And you don't have kids, right? So it does make travel a little bit easier. That
Mm-hmm.
changes a lot, not only buying, in my case, like 5 tickets to go somewhere, but also just like literally all of the bags. Um,
Yes.
like we went to, geez, we went on a family vacation. I mean, it's more of a trip because now that I'm running my own thing, I can't really fully check out, but I didn't open my laptop for a couple days, which is a huge win, and really got to focus on spending time with
Mm-hmm.
family. But what stood out to me is we get to Baltimore and we go to Avis, right, to load up the vehicle. And it was too small. Like there literally wasn't enough room. And this was a mid-sized car. So I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my God, we have so many bags that like this wouldn't be safe. Like A, I can't see out the back window. B, it's like people have to hold their suitcase on them for a 2.5 hour drive to the beach. Like, no. So now when we travel, we need like a Explorer or something like that just to get all the bags in and have it be safe. So like little things like that, that's so much easier when you don't have kids and all of their stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you have so much stuff? But you just do. Everybody has one bag. Everybody has a carry-on. That's like 10 bags, right? So, and then a car seat.
I will Go ahead.
No, you go. You're going to say something.
Yeah, I was just saying that the process of consulting and being on the road trained me to really pack lean, because you don't have time to check bags in. You want to get home, you need to get to the next spot. So I will say, Seven Legs trained me in that. I have always packed super lean, so we're in and out quick for our travels. But I know I can only imagine with kids, that many kids.
Well, so I'm with you. Like me too, right? I don't want to check bags, but then you don't have a choice if you got all these bags and you're going away for a week and you got kids, right? So the contrast, my wife always says this to me when she has to travel either for work or for a friend's trip or something, where she's like, wow, this is like, and she travels a lot less than me. So I'd say like most of her trips are family trips. So she's like, man, this is what you do. Like, this is so easy when you travel by yourself. I'm like, yeah, it's kind of nice, right? You can just sort of sit at a bar and order some food, maybe go to the American Express lounge, right? Park wherever you want. It's not this crazy process. A little bit of a delay. That's all right. I'll just sleep on the plane, no big deal. Versus like, oh, there's a delay. Oh my God, are the kids going to get to bed on time? So
yeah, I've got a funny story for you. It just happened to me. I was out at the Gartner conference out in Florida a couple of months back, heading back home. Again, the beauty of flexibility, the beauty of traveling. I ended up getting to the airport, and they changed my flight so that the plane actually shrank. So it was a plane layout that was smaller than the original flight. So that means that they had to kick people off because there wasn't enough seats, and so they were looking for volunteers. I called my husband. I was like, okay, do you want me to do a $1,000 voucher to not be on this plane and I'll come home tomorrow? Or do you want me to get on this plane? He said, I'll see you tomorrow.
Totally. No, totally.
So, right? The only way I could pull that off is I was lean. I didn't have any, a small bag. I was like, yeah, I'm out of here. Put me in the hotel. I'll be back in the morning. Always travel light.
Yeah. I mean, that is definitely something. And I really can't take advantage of those types of things anymore, because if you leave all your kids at home with your wife, even if somebody's saying, yeah, we'll give you $1,500 to go tomorrow, it's like, well, I'm kind of needed like as soon as I can get there, guys. So I'm not going to be that person, even though it would be nice to have $1,500 travel credit. So what do you do? What kind of work do you do? And I know Chevron's like a big enough company that you've probably moved around roles, but I do think it's still kind of IT or liaison between IT and the business. Like, what do you do? Like, what kind of work do you do at Chevron currently?
Yeah, so I'm part of the data engineering group. And right now I'm doing a lot of people management. So this is around not only career planning for employees in the data engineering space, but also seeing how we can continue to grow and improve our data engineering employees overall. So data engineering is mostly, analysts, architects, engineers, all covering all the variety of areas across Chevron. So it's really an interesting role. I've enjoyed it. I've been in this particular role for the last 2 years, and it allows me to lean into the people development side, which I really love. So I know I've been talking all about staying within the tech space, but I get to work and meet so many smart people every day and hear their journeys, hear their challenges of how they're trying to solve these really big important data problems, and I get to be a part of that conversation. So I've really enjoyed it. I don't know what's next in my horizon, but I know that I'll continue to look for roles where I can help influence and try to support people's careers along the way.
Yeah, I like that. And I think like I do remember at one point, geez, this must have been 2016, 20, no, 2017, 2018. You were like doing some sort of like midstream supply chain. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
We're working on like upstream, like production, operational efficiency dashboards. I'm like, now you're running like 60 people in a midstream supply chain group. So A, it speaks to your versatility, but B, it's like, well, what do you want to do? And I think the combination of your consulting background, but also your skill in dealing with people makes sense when you're
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, you've got these chess pieces and you need to move them around accordingly. A, to keep them motivated, but also B, to ensure that Chevron's like project mandate is executed upon. Right. So I think it's a
Mm-hmm.
really good role for you, as I see it, because it's a mix of the personality people management in addition to technology execution. So I could see why you like this particular role. Let me ask you a little bit, without getting too deep into the Chevron corporate strategy, about what it's like working for a bigger company that has really leaned into and embraced the concept of sustainability and ESG.
Mm.
Are you seeing more projects like hit your radar that are related to hydrogen or carbon capture, or just non-traditional upstream oil and gas focus? And maybe talk a little bit about like what you think the company might look like as this becomes more of a hot topic.
Yeah, I think one thing that Chevron has always done really well is to share a lot of their journeys and their projects on different news outlets and even on their own YouTube channel. In fact, I recommend checking it out. They have some really great videos of some of the projects going on in California around
Okay.
renewables and what they're trying to do, right, to move the needle in that direction. So the focus on sustainability is something that has always been a big part of the company year after year. In fact, we've got a sustainability report that comes out every year talking about all the impact across the globe that's done. So
Mm,
in terms of IT, we continue to lean into the business on what's most important and focusing on the priority projects, and those are a big part of it. So we are always kind of pivoting around data. So I'm going to put my data
yeah.
hat on. We're always looking to say, okay, what's coming in new that maybe it's new data we need to collect. And you have to realize with such large companies that sometimes there's so much information. How do you make sense
Right.
of it all? How do you find it so that it's actually meaningful and you can make decisions on it? And that's the beauty of being in the data space, which I've always been since day one. I mean, since my PeopleSoft days, it's always been about the data, and then it's
Yeah.
always been about quality and reliability and consistency. And regardless of what topic it is, whether it's renewables, whether it's operations, or anything in between, um, people want to know and be able to trust data. And so
Yeah.
that's why the roles around the data space, especially now with AI coming up big and getting more and more popular, AI is only as good as your data, right?
Totally.
So if you don't
100%.
get your data story right, you can't do these new and exciting projects. And so I think that's why I've always loved staying in this data space because it is such a fundamental piece of all software. You cannot make good applications without quality behind it. So yeah, I think I'll always have and lean into data in the rest of my career for sure.
Well, yeah, and it feels like a pivotal time as far as data, because you're right. I think for there's a lot of, if I just look at the whole ecosystem of oil and gas, there are some companies that are like, we don't trust our data. Our data is not good. We've done too many acquisitions. How do we reconcile all of this stuff? And they're sort of like, in a tricky spot. Then you have
Mm-hmm.
companies that have put in data management best practices and have maybe a data management team or have just invested heavily. So they feel confident in their data, but now they're trying to figure out like, okay, what do we now do with it? Right? Like we want to start
Mm-hmm.
putting chatbots on everything and start asking questions around like, what does the rock look like here? Show me the lift type for a subset of wells in this particular area. Show me the AFE costs on aggregate or average for this series of pads, and like really be able to then spend more time analyzing and less time
Mm-hmm.
searching for data. Because even if your data is good, like where is it, right? And what's the trusted source? And I see this so many times, even at companies that I love and respect, is we have like really talented, intelligent, hardworking people that spend so much more of their time looking for data than analyzing
Mm-hmm.
data and making decisions. So I'm like really keen to see what this looks like over the next few years, as humans don't necessarily need to be the ones to search for that data. And you can
Yes.
leverage the bots and start to see like, all right, what did we find when we were looking at this information? And now can I
Sure.
make a recommendation or decision that used to take 3 weeks and now do it in 2 hours? Like, I think that's
Mm-hmm.
going to be pretty powerful, cool stuff. And I think tangentially, the executives at the companies want this, but the people who have their hands in
Mm-hmm.
the data are like, we have to make sure that we trust it first. So,
Yeah, and I'd say you're gonna need a balance, right? Because I think we will start to lean more and more into AI to tell us like right what we're looking for, but there is value in that human analysis piece that we have to figure out what's that
yeah.
sweet spot between the two. I just read an article the other day about Google's AI providing incorrect information to specific questions because it
Wow.
was trained on articles that were satire. They were not meant to be true statements. These were actual satire specific arguments that were put out there, but the AI came back and said it as fact, right? And so even if you train these bots to give you information, what is the accuracy of the information that it's being trained on? So there is, I think, something we have to figure out in how we use these tools to say, okay, this is the information. How do I now maybe validate it, or maybe it supports my own thinking? And then
Mm.
I can counter it and say, yes, it's validated by this and this and this. And it just simplifies maybe my research, but doesn't replace my research, right?
Yeah, and you would look really bad if all of a sudden you give this bot or whatever to somebody that wants this information and it's answering questions off of satire. It's like, well, what are you
Mm-hmm.
doing? Like, apply your own human-based intelligence to it before you give it to me, dude. Don't make that
Yeah,
my problem.
exactly.
So that's funny, and like I love hearing about use cases like that. Since I don't dig into the AI every single day, I use it for some pieces, and I see the value in it. I think I probably
Mm-hmm.
need like a crash course on like, how do you best leverage AI for sales or business development or marketing. And I'm not talking about like writing my emails for me, because it still feels a little bit too artificial in that case. Like,
Mm-hmm.
to me, I like to lean into the authenticity of how I do write emails, and it has to be like, kind of fun and sticky and real. And there's nuance that I don't know if AI fully grasps now or will grasp anytime soon, right? Without models getting extensive training.
Mm-hmm. And we're still in these early phases of how we can adapt it into our day to day. I mean, we'll see it evolve in our lifetime, and it will look nothing like it
Yeah.
does today, and the trust of it will be quite high. But I think we just need to truly find that balance of the that human unique factor along with speed of getting that information out right to the masses. How do we have the two coexist together? together. I was also reflecting on my nephew, who I'm always amazed at how quickly he can use technology so fast in his
Yeah.
everyday. And I'm like, oh, show me that trick. How'd you do that? Right. And he can pick it up so fast. And I love, his text messages to me. And, he's just so fast about everything of how he works.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we may see, right, this next generation use it in a way we had never thought of. Right.
Yeah, I mean, even outside of just AI technology as a whole. I mean, I remember a few years ago seeing my oldest daughter do like edits on TikTok, and I'm like, wow, she's making like mini movies like on her phone. I'm like, this is like really impressive stuff. So I'm like, hey, will you do some of these for like my business? I'll pay you. She's like, absolutely not interested in doing that. And I'm like, I will literally
My
pay you
topic.
$20. She's like, it's just a waste of my time. It's not fun. I'm like, oh, okay. I guess we have a different mindset. Somebody was offering me $20 or whatever with inflation, $10 back in the day to do something that would take me 2 minutes.
Oh,
I'd be
yeah, right
cranking out edits
there.
all day, baby. Let's go. Let's do some edits. All right. I want to put you on the hot seat real quick. I told you 45 minutes. Doesn't matter. We went long. Doesn't surprise me at all. So I'm going to ask you some questions. Maybe I prepared you for these. Maybe I did, but I'm just going to sort of throw it out there. So, first
Mm-hmm.
one, who is your favorite colleague at Seven Lakes?
Oh, my goodness. Wow. Oh, I have so many. I'm like, let me think. Let me think. I will say all my relationships were unique and special. I'll have to say it's Simone. Simone's my favorite.
Ooh, I'm gonna send this to Tinsy. Tinsy's gonna hear this. She's not gonna be happy because you guys were like inseparable when you were together.
Yes,
You and
yes, no, there were so many, but I think it was because we had the journey from the past, right?
right,
He really did support me, especially when I went into a brand new space. When I first moved to Bakersfield, he was always so supportive and made sure I, adapted and came into the team with a lot of success. So there's a longer journey there, but yeah, everybody I love though.
yeah, no, Simone's a good one. What do you like to do outside of work?
Yeah, so of course we talked about travel already, and so if I'm not here in Houston, I'm on the road somewhere, traveling somewhere because I love it. But I also have a passion around journaling and crafting,
Hmm,
so that's something that I love to do. And so I've got into that actually right around the time I was planning my wedding, and I got into a lot of that and. Uh, Again, my sister and our entrepreneurial spirit, we took a passion of mine and created a small business around it. So
nice,
I get to do a hobby that I love, but I also, make money from that hobby too. So I have a small business around journals and notebooks that I create. And it's something I've been doing now since 2015, somewhere around there is when it finally
nice.
happened. So I cannot believe it. I'm 9 years into that small business.
Good for you. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a space I know absolutely nothing about, but obviously, if you've been able to turn it into a real business, there must be some demand for whatever it is you're doing from a journaling standpoint. So
Very
keep it
niche,
going.
very niche for those listening,
Yeah.
right? Those specific that have a passion around specialty paper, specifically Japanese paper. It is a
Wow.
specialty of mine. I have Japanese paper brought in to Houston here every month. It's something that I love and it's an art form that isn't as visible and represented anymore, but there is a very niche market out there for people that truly appreciate it.
Well, I'm not one of
Yeah.
those people, but if you're listening to this and you are, you can reach out to Dominique. Um,
Anytime.
Next question I wanted to throw at you is, geez, I have a few. Let me narrow this down a little bit. So, talk to me a little bit about what you see over the next few years of your career. Like it seems like at this point you kind of are a bit more of a Chevron lifer. Would you be happy doing the type of job you have now for the next 5 years? Do you want a different challenge, living somewhere else, working on the refinery or midstream or some other side of the business? Like, sort of, what do you see
Hmm.
as your career path starts to continue to unfold as a Chevron person?
Yeah, I mean, this question, I mean, I even ask my own team members this all the time, and we all laugh about it, right? Oh, I don't know what the next year will bring, or I can't think 10 years out, right? But I feel like I'm at a point now where I am very happy and content with how where life is taking me and the work that I get to do. So yeah, I could see myself doing this going forward, and maybe it evolving into maybe some new business areas, like
Yeah.
maybe getting some exposure to areas I haven't seen before, but still managing and having a chance to work and connect with people. I've realized now that that's a passion of mine. I really do enjoy it. So I'd like to continue to lean into that. And yeah, maybe 5 years from now, I have another epiphany and I realize, you know what?
Right.
I'm going to do something new. And I think that's the beauty of just any career or any company. You can pivot, and
Yeah.
you say Chevron lifer, but I think Chevron brings a unique perspective where, yeah, you can have multiple kinds of careers within Chevron, and they truly support that. And there's so much value in
Yeah.
having a chance to pivot and still be in the same company and have and maintain those relationships. So yeah, let's see where life brings me. But for now,
All
I'll
right.
keep on the same
We'll check in 5 years then. And
path.
final question for you, Dom. What advice would you give to your younger self? I'm talking about maybe the 21, 22-year-old version of yourself. And I know
Hmm.
that's not the easiest question to answer, but like, what would you tell the younger version of Dominique as you head out into the world and career and oil and gas and tech and
Yeah,
entrepreneurship and all these things? What would you tell yourself?
I would say one, one as I reflect to is keep up with your networks. I don't
Yeah.
think that I recognize how important they were in the early days. And there's so many people that have made such an impact for me over the years that I never had a chance to stay connected to.
Mm,
And it's something that is a part I struggle with sometimes, right? To make sure I leave enough room in my day to stay connected to those that really made a difference. And I would say that to my younger self and to others early in their career. You may hear that from mentors and advisors saying, hey, it's your network, it's who you know, it's all the people you talk to. But those relationships really can help you when you're pivoting or making a big
yeah.
change. So I
Yeah.
shared the example of me going back out into the world again and trying another after leaving Seven Lakes and doing something new. And it was my relationships that got me back
Yeah.
in to Chevron and to my next moves. And again, whatever the future may bring, it's about the people around you that kind of make that happen. I know it's you too. It's you as an individual to pace yourself and to find those opportunities. But man, does it make a difference when you have support around you to make it happen too. So that would
Yeah.
be my advice.
I love that. I mean, people answer that question so differently, and I really appreciate that that's what you went for and mentioned. Sometimes people think of network as like I go to an event where I don't know anybody and I shake a whole bunch of hands. Sure, that's networking. But you're talking about people that you've spent time, doing projects with, getting on airplanes together, staying at the same hotel and staying up later at night and finishing up work or just talking about life. That's really what it's all about, and
Yeah.
I commend you for providing that advice back, and now it's making me reflect on maybe I should have done a better job at that when I was in my 20s. But I did understand at some point the value of the network, and now it's like a
Yeah,
very important part of how I operate. So, Dom, thank you so much for coming on. You
thank
crushed
you.
it.
Thank
You're a
you.
great
So much fun.
representative. Yeah, you're a great representative for your organization. You're one of my favorite colleagues of all time, and I can't thank you enough for
Thank
coming on.
you. Thank you. Have a good one. Thank you so much for inviting me.